Okay, well, then if we're going to go ahead and get started. Glenn, thanks for reaching out to us and giving us this opportunity to present on Paid Leave Oregon. So I'm Philip Hudspeth. I'm an outreach program analyst here with Paid Leave Oregon. And so this session is intended to provide a brief overview of the program, and then we'll just open up the majority of our time for your questions or clarifiers they may have. And we'll just ask for you to hold your questions until we're done with our brief presentation. So I'm going to just turn it over to Laura. Laura's going to is going to go through our presentation, and then she and I'll go through and answer any of your questions afterwards. Laura?
Thank you, Philip. Hello, I'm Laura Ayala, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm an outreach program analyst here at Paid Leave Oregon. During this presentation, we will provide a general overview of paid leave, how it will work, who is covered, who contributes, and what assistance is available. We are headed in the final month of implementation of paid leave in Oregon. As you can see on the screen, this September, we started to accept equivalent plans, and our new online portal, Francis, has gone live. Contributions begin January 1st. Benefits and assistance grants to small employers start on September 3rd, 2023. In Oregon, paid leave is for up to 12 weeks, with 2 additional weeks for some pregnancy-related conditions. Leave can be taken in 3 broad categories. Family leave, to take care for a family member with a serious illness or injury, or to bond with a new child after birth, adoption, or foster care placement. Medical leave during one's own serious health condition, and safe leave for survivors of sexual assault, domestic violence, harassment, or stalking. Any employee who earned at least $1,000 in the year before claiming paid leave may be eligible for benefits. When they have a life event like family, medical, or safe leave, they would apply for leave and let their employer know that they will need leave. If an employer uses the state's plan, the employee will submit an application, including any eligibility verification, to the state. If the employer uses an equivalent plan, applications will go through the insurance provider or directly to the employer. After the application is approved for leave and benefits, they will receive weekly payments within 2 weeks for the amount of time they need, up to 12 weeks for most situations, or 14 weeks possible for pregnancy-related situations. Unlike unemployment insurance, Paid Leave Oregon does not require individuals to refile their claim each week. Instead, employees are only responsible for notifying the program if there is a change, such as change in the length of leave or an update to the qualifying event. Paid Leave Oregon covers nearly all employers in Oregon, including nonprofits, S-corps, religious organizations. All employees except employees of federal and tribal governments are required to participate in the paid leave program. The contribution rate or percentage for paid leave is set annually, no later than November 15th by the Employment Department and cannot exceed 1% of gross employee wages. The rate for 2023 is 1% of up to $132,900 in wages. Earnings over this amount are not subject to contributions. Employees pay 60% of the contribution rate. Large employers pay 40% of the contribution rate. Small employers with fewer than 25 employees are not required to pay the employer portion of the contributions. Employers may choose to pay the employee portion as a benefit for their employees. This slide shows examples of what the contribution amount would be for different types of wage earners. For example, a minimum wage worker would annually pay $168 and the business $112. 1 week of paid leave benefits for the same individual would be $540. Lowest wage workers would receive 100% wage reimbursement, with less than 100% for those workers in mid and high income jobs. So the minimum weekly benefit amount would be $61. The maximum weekly benefit amount would be $1,469. The current state average weekly wage is $1,224. These values will be updated next June. The department uses payroll reporting submitted by the employer to determine size. Employee size is determined each year and applicable for the next calendar year. The employee count includes full-time, part-time, seasonal, and temporary employees, as well as out-of-state workers. Only workers hired to replace employees taking paid leave are excluded from the count. Paid Leave Oregon defines large employers as those with 25 or more employees. Large employers are required to contribute 40% of the set contribution rate. Employers with fewer than 25 employees are not required to contribute the 40% share. Employees always contribute their 60% portion of the contributions regardless of the size of their employer. Employers of any size can pay any portion of this rate as a benefit to their employees. Small employers that agree to pay the employer portion of contributions may be eligible for assistant grant. That will help with the cost of hiring a replacement worker or significant wage-related costs. The grants available are a $3,000 grant to hire a replacement worker or up to $1,000 grant for wage-related costs such as overtime or training costs. Employers can receive up to 10 grants per year for a maximum of $30,000. Employers who receive an assistant grant commit to paying the 40% contribution rate for 2 years. Let's talk a moment about the job protection under Paid Leave Oregon. As an employee, your job is protected if you worked for your employer more than 90 days. This applies to both large and small employers. If the position no longer exists, the employer may choose to place you in a different position with similar job duties with the same pay. Regardless of the 90-day time frame, your employer must maintain health care benefits to employees who are taking leave. Some nonprofits will choose to purchase or create their own equivalent plan versus participating in the state trust. Equivalent plans must be approved by the department, limit withholdings from employees to 60% of the contribution rate, provide equal to or greater benefits to employees, and report wages but not pay contributions to the state plan. Equivalent plan applications are available online through Francis. In September of 2023, employees will be eligible to apply for paid leave. If their employer uses an equivalent plan, then the applications for leave will be sent to their employer or third-party provider as opposed to being sent to the state. Before we end our presentation, we would like to offer a brief recap. The contribution rate for 2023 is 1% of gross wages. The employee contribution, 60% of the contribution rate, regardless of employer size. Large employers contribute 40% of the contribution rate, while small employers can choose to contribute the employer portion. Any employee who earned at least $1,000 in the year before claiming paid leave may be eligible for benefits. Once again, thank you for watching this presentation. And we want to stay connected with you, all of you. Please visit our website, Paid Leave Oregon, at paidleave.oregon.gov. Sign up for our bulletin or attend future informational sessions. And did anybody, and you can raise your hand or put your questions in the chat and we will be happy to answer any questions you have.
Yeah, go ahead, Glenn. What can we answer for you?
Thank you, Laura and Philip. I appreciate this. As a small employer and nonprofit, I'm curious about the benefit for my employees. You mentioned that it's optional for small employers to contribute that 40%. All employees have to contribute the 60%. What will employees gain by having the employer contribute 40%? I'm trying to understand the math of what's put in versus what gets to be paid out in terms of a benefit if someone has a qualifying leave. Because it looks like we're all paying into this pool, and as a trust, you may very well get more back than you've contributed over the course of an 8-week paid leave, for example. So can you help me understand the impact of a small employer contributing to the plan versus not contributing to the plan on its employees?
Sure. And Laura, if you don't mind, I'll just go ahead and jump in. So if you elect to make that employer contribution, so that 40% of the 1% of your employees gross wages. So think of it as 0.004. If you elect to participate in there, then you're going to be eligible for assistance grants. And I'll go back to that slide so you can take a look at that. But basically, the assistance grants will help you with replacing somebody that goes out on paid leave. So you can hire, you can get a $3,000 grant to hire a replacement worker. You can get a $1,000 grant for wage-related costs, such as overtime and training costs. And as Laura noted in our presentation, you could get up to 10 grants totaling $30,000 in the course of a year to help with offset some of the costs for you as a small employer for your employees that go on to leave. And I think if you look at your payroll for the last year and you do the math and what you could get on potential grants, you can see where your breaking point is going to be on that. But essentially, if you don't opt into the program at this time to making that employer contribution, you can participate later. It's just, and if you receive assistance grants, then you're committed to making those employer contributions for 8 quarters. So for 2 years, 8 quarters.
Okay, so it sounds that's very helpful. It sounds like the employer portion, you're incentivized by these assistant grants.
Correct.
Ultimately, the employee, it won't be impacted either way in terms of the benefit the employee receives.
Correct.
The employer could benefit by contributing into this program.
Correct. Yeah, and so employees will always pay that 60% of their 1% of the gross wages. It doesn't impact their overall benefits. We're looking at their last year prior to a qualifying event for paid leave and what their total wage history is, and then their benefits will be paid off on that. So if they've earned at least $1,000 in the year leading up to that qualifying event, they may be eligible for paid leave. Okay.
And a follow-up, I don't see anybody else's hand raised at this point, but if an employer opts into the program sometime down the road, I'm trying to get a sense of, I understand the 2-year commitment, the 8 quarters to pay into the program. So is it conceivable that employer opts in at the time someone makes their medical leave claim and starts contributing kind of in sync with a claim? And as long as they fulfill their obligation over the next 2 years to pay in, they could be eligible for these assistance grants?
Yeah, that absolutely.
Okay.
So if they just see that the opportunity or that they could qualify for these assistance grants and the need for them, yeah, they can opt into it. It's just they're making that commitment for 2 years.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. And just a couple things for you as an employer. So if you're participating in the state trust, not doing an equivalent plan, meaning that you doing a self-administered plan, or you're purchased a plan through a third-party insurance provider that you're using the state trust. If you have an employee that has a qualifying event, they're going to apply directly with the state. And it's going to be most likely they're going to go through our online portal. We are researching options for individuals that might not have access to technology, where they could apply through a work source office or some other conduit. But most individuals are going to apply online. Would want to make sure that you and whomever on your staff that deals with your payroll are up to date with our new online portal called Francis Online. And so if an employee applies for Paid Leave Oregon is going to notify you as the employer through whatever contact information we have on Francis. So making sure that information is up to date, and then we'll contact you and say, we received this application from this person. Is this person an employee? Have they given you appropriate notice? And ask for a couple of verification information. It'll be up to the employee to decide if they want to apply for paid leave or not. So if the employee chooses to apply for paid leave Oregon benefits, and then they have to go through the process of submitting the verification documentation. When paid leave makes a determination, you as an employer will receive the second notification on what the determination has been, the type of leave, if the person's been approved for leave, the type of leave that they've been approved for. So whether it's intermittent leave, like, they or a family member needs to go to therapy every Friday, or if it's going to be consecutive leave, so they're going to be out for 12 weeks, what have you. So you'll receive that second notification of the type of leave, or meaning intermittent or consecutive, and the duration of the leave. We won't release the information about the type of leave, whether it's family, medical, or safe leave, or any other medical information in regards to that.
And Philip, I'm somewhat ignorant, for better or worse, of the Family Medical Leave Act, the leave program that I was familiar with. How does this program compare, or does this supplant that, or is it in concert with that? I'm trying to understand the relationship between this new leave program and what is currently on the books, shall we say.
Sure. So paid leave would run concurrently with OFLA, the Oregon Family Leave Act, and the Federal Medical Leave Act, OFLA, when appropriate there. There are pretty much paid leave and OFLA would run in concert for the majority of situations. There are some things for that OFLA covers, such as bereavement leave and military leave, that's not covered under paid leave Oregon. But otherwise, they should run concurrently. And I would encourage you to take a look at what your current policies are for your organization, and just ensure that you have it written that all your leaves should run concurrently at the same time, just to avoid somebody trying to attempt to stack leaves. The leave is supposed to be capitated at 18 weeks total. And so, as Laura said, it's 12 weeks in most situations for leave. Then there's a possibility of 2 additional weeks for some pregnancy related conditions. So that's 14. And then you could add 4 weeks if a medical provider says it was necessary. So 4 weeks of unpaid leave under OFLA, the Oregon Family Leave Act, maximizing at 18. And that's what it is in statute. The max is 18 weeks there. But if somebody doesn't file a paid leave benefit application, they could potentially use OFLA and then attempt to go out on paid leave there. So that's why I would encourage you to take a look at what your current leave policies are.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
And I'll be dropping in the chat a chart that kind of, you can see what can run concurrent.
And we'll drop a few things in the chat for you, just to give you some additional information to look at. One of the things we'd also encourage you to do is sign up for our bulletin with our. There's still information that we're waiting on guidance from under the Department of Treasury, or excuse me, the Department of Revenue, the Oregon Department of Revenue, and the Oregon Department of Justice in regards to the taxability of paid leave benefits. So let's say for you as an employer, you decided that you want to pay the employee's contribution as a benefit to the employee. Is it a taxable benefit? We're not 100% certain at this time. We're still waiting on guidance. There's 11 states across the country, that including Oregon, that has paid leave programs, in the District of Columbia. But the federal government hasn't issued a statement or guidance on taxability of paid leave programs.
Any indication of when that might come? Because obviously that's, a factor for employees to even determine whether they want their employers to add that or.
Right. We're expecting guidance from the Oregon Department of Revenue soon. But they've been saying soon for a little bit. I've been assured that it's supposed to be soon there. And that's why we would encourage you to sign up for our bulletin, just so you get that latest information there. The other thing, Glenn, we'll drop also into the chat a link to our website. We have these ongoing community conversations. They typically take place on Thursday afternoons at 3 o'clock. You can send other staff to our to these community conversations. You get a similar presentation. It's 15 minutes, and then it's open to for questions and answers afterwards. There.
Great. Thank you very much for that.
Sure, sure.
Anyone else in our room here? Welcome, Molly, Peter, and Rachel. Does anyone else have a question? I am recording this. I will have it available, through Van's social media and on our website. If anybody needs to refer back to it or share it with another colleague.
Yeah, I have a question. I feel very fortunate that we actually have an HR person that's really riding herd on this and is our business manager, because it does seem a little bit complicating. So mainly I just wanted to sit into this today to just get a little bit of overview of it. So the actual checks, the payment for paid family leave would come from Oregon. Is that the idea?
Yes, sir, that's correct. It'll be once somebody has completed their application, submitted all the verification documents, they'll be paid directly. There's not a waiting week like with unemployment insurance. They'll be paid almost immediately, and their payments will come from the state to them.
Okay, so different than sick leave, that this is really intentional leave for the three categories that you described before.
Right. So an individual would need to have a qualifying event, serious illness or injury, family member with a serious illness or injury, birth, adoption, foster care, placement of a child, survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, harassment, or stalking. Those would be what would be considered qualifying events. We can also drop the rule for what a qualifying event would be into the chat. Laura or I can look it up, but they would need to have a qualifying event. This is not intended to replace accrued sick leave. So if you're not feeling well, you need to stay home for a day or two. This is not replacing that. It has to be a serious health condition there. So that's what it's really intended for. Child with a serious health condition could be qualify for, a parent could qualify for paid leave. The definition is very similar to the Oregon Family Leave Act as far as in serious health condition, qualifying conditions, excuse me. There's also a bit broader definition of what the family member is. So it's by blood or affinity.
Okay, because the traditional family medical leave we're familiar with, it does seem like I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think it applies to occasional part-time employees, but this would, provided they have 1,000 hours or $1,000 in the previous year.
Right. Yeah. So it doesn't come. We don't look at hours like with unemployment insurance. It is just looking at have they earned $1,000 in wages in Oregon. That's the other caveat. They have to have been working in Oregon.
Well, as a public policy point of view, I'm very supportive of the law. It's I think it's a good thing to do, but I think the administration and rollout, I think there'll be a lot of questions and confusion for a lot of employers. So, but thanks for presenting all this information.
Sure, and we'll be happy to come back, especially as we get closer to implementation. As Laura noted in her presentation, we started accepting applications for equivalent plans in September. So if employers don't want to participate in the state trust, they can do a self-administered plan or buy one through a third-party provider. Contributions go live next month, and then applications for benefits will begin in September 3, and we'll be issuing assistance grants at that time too.
I think Rachel had a question.
Yeah.
Can you collect sick leave and state fund at the same time?
Okay. Let's see. I lost the chat here. Can you
Yes.
collect sick leave and state funds at the same time?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So you're the employer provided sick leave. Okay, that's up to the employer. All right. So if you have an employer, lowest wage workers are going to receive 100% wage reimbursement. Those of us in middle and higher income tax brackets, we're going to receive a percentage of our of our salary, and it's going to run roughly from 65 to 85%, depending on where you fall on that spectrum there. Employers can allow employees to top off their benefits using sick leave or some type of accrued leave. This is up to the employer's discretion. You will need to certainly note this in your employer policy. But if you are, if an employee says, I'm only receiving 65% of my wage reimbursement while I'm on paid leave, I would like to be able to use accrued leave to top off my benefits to get to 100% wage reimbursement. If the employer allows it, then they can do that. But so paid leave, Oregon won't be looking at that. It's up to the employer's discretion. Also, if you provide a short-term disability insurance to a third party, if that insurance provider allows it, you can sometimes top off paid leave benefits with short-term disability, but it's up to the insurance company if they allow the individual to receive both. You can't receive paid leave, Oregon benefits, and unemployment insurance and workers' compensation. So, if they're getting workers' comp, they can't get paid leave. If they're getting unemployment insurance, cannot receive paid leave.
And Rachel said, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yes, Glenn.
Is there, besides the portal and some other online assistance that you've got for people to be able to go and refer to, is there going to be some kind of a, I don't know, I'll call it a help desk for employers who have a specific question? You know, here's my employee, here's the situation, I don't know how to navigate this. Can you help us?
Sure. We do have a whole team. So if you've got a whole team dedicated to answering the 800 number, let's see, it's 833-854-0166. You can also email questions to paidleave@oregon.gov. Our website has been completely retooled. We've got a fantastic website. There are links for employees. There's links for employers. There's an employer toolbox. So it can certainly walk you through the whole paid leave program, what your responsibilities as an employer is, and what the employee's responsibilities are. So as an example, if somebody knows that they're going to have foreseeable leave, they got a surgery that's coming up, they're expecting the birth of a child, the employee is required to give the employer 30 days notice that they're going to be taking paid leave. All right. Then there's unforeseeable leave. So somebody has a sudden illness, sudden injury, family member, sudden illness, sudden injury. They have to give the employer 24 hours verbal notice, followed by written notice within 3 days, 3 business days there. So, you know, we would definitely have all the guidelines for what the employer needs to be aware of. I would also say, if you have employees that are going to your HR person or coming to you and saying they need to think about taking paid leave. Of course, this is when the program goes live, September 3rd of 2023. You can send them to the website and they can research it. There's also going to be a benefits calculator on the website. So if an individual is trying to get an idea, and it'll be an idea of what their benefit will be, they can input the information, what their salary is, and it should be able to kick out a rough estimate of what their weekly benefit would be under paid leave.
Perfect. And I just put the contact information and phone number and website on our chat.
And can you drop the link to the website, please?
Yes, it's on there. Yes,
Oh.
I can drop the other one too. The other one, yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, Peter.
I had a question. Do you have any estimate how much revenue you'll bring in from this to fund the program?
You know, that's a good question. I don't know it off the top of my head. We do have an actuary economist on staff that is looking at contributions, what benefits are going to be. And so I don't know what the dollar amount is going to be initially there. It's a good question. We do have a whole team that's dedicated looking at the trust, the health of the trust, and managing that. We're required by statute to make sure that we keep a 6-month reserve into that fund. But as far as what the initial first glance of what contributions are going to be and what we'll have in the trust come September 3rd, I don't know what that dollar amount is projected to be. I've seen it, I just don't recall it.
So, and I guess the point I'm trying to get or trying to understand, if it's 1% of payroll, and you have a large amount of funds in there, like you're calling it a trust, well, it might be possible that there's no future funding of it, or the funding level might go down, or the requirement of contribution might go down in the future.
There is a possibility of that. So the rate was set at 1% for the first years as we stand up this program. We also have to pay back a loan to the state treasury to set up this program. So the contributions are funding, us paying back the loan for the administration of the program, awarding of benefits, and issuing of assistance grants to small employers there. So that's what's being set up. The statute says that the rate cannot exceed 1%. So that's why we set it up at the maximum rate. And our director, Karen Hubblebaugh, has said, the long-term goal is to be able to roll that rate down. So it cannot exceed 1% by statute. It would require the legislature taking action to change what that contribution rate is. So it won't exceed 1% of gross wages. The goal is to be able to roll that back once we've set it up, paid back those loans, and just been able to get this program stood up.
And there must be some analysis of other states that have done this. You said 8 or 9 other states have done something similar.
Yeah, so there's 11 states total. That includes Oregon and the District of Columbia. Our program probably resembles Washington State the closest. We have a real good working relationship with the state of Washington. This might be of interest to you guys since you're in the Washington County. We have a joint letter in regards to a place of performance with the state of Washington. So you can have workers that live in Oregon, but they work in Washington. So who would they be, where would their contributions go to? If they had a qualifying event, what state would they be participating in, that kind of thing there. So we've definitely looked at a lot of other states, the other states that have come before us, and there are states that are now following us. I just read today that Minnesota is looking to implement a program in their legislative session this year, or I guess the next year, excuse me.
Any other questions for Philip? Philip and Laura, this has been very helpful. Thanks for spending this time with us. As I say, I will provide a recording. I copied the chat room, so I'll make sure that that information is also accessible via our website.
Great.
And,
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Let us know if you have questions. You can certainly email paidleave@oregon.gov. Join us for one of our community conversations. So we've got 2 more. No, I'm sorry, we got 1 more this year. I can't believe the date as it is.
yeah.
Yeah, so we've got 1 more Thursday on the 15th, and then they'll resume again Thursdays at 3 o'clock. You're welcome to join us there. And like I said, please feel free to email us if you got questions.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, thanks to Peter and Molly, and Rachel's already gone, but thanks for showing up. I hope this was helpful for you.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn.
Yeah,
Very helpful.
my pleasure.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thanks,
holiday
Philip
season.
and Laura. Yeah, same to
Take
you.
good care.
Thank you.